I have been a big follower of Bob Proctor and have been listening to him and have been reading his books. And it is just amazing as to how he makes so much sense when he talks about the paradigm. And it is just amazing as to how paradigm does affect or has effect on our life, or as to how it makes it so difficult to get out of what is in our own mind. It is just been a great subject for me, which I've been reading, which I've been talking about a lot, but this is the first time that I'm going to make a 4-part series about this particular subject. So, what is paradigm? Paradigm is basically what stays in our brains, what stays in our mind from our old days, that just becomes a part of our own lifestyle. In other words, it is so ingrained in us that certain feelings, that certain beliefs, they are so ingrained in us that we don't let it go, that we take them for granted, that we take them for real. In other words, it's the voice in our head that keeps on talking about certain things that may not even exist, but then we follow it, but then we listen to it. So it is something that is set within our bodies. Now, let me give you my personal example to say as to how that had worked for me, and we'll see as to how that developed and as to how I understood as to what paradigm was. When I was 18 years old in Montreal, I had just enrolled in my McGill University accounting courses. One of the conditions that I had was I needed to work with an accounting firm in the daytime. I needed to work with an auditing firm. And being not familiar as to how I was going to do that, I had asked somebody, what should I do? And the person had suggested very simply that I should go through the yellow pages under accountants, auditors, and look for some telephone numbers and call these people. But here's what something else this person did. He said, but don't bother calling any larger companies. Don't bother calling national or international companies. Just, he says, find small companies, because the large companies will not hire your type. I didn't understand what he meant by your type, but then he cleared up. He says, they do not hire brown people. Now, was it true? Was it not true? Did I go out and check it? No. But I took his words at par. So automatically what I did was I said, okay, large companies, I cannot work with them. So I'll work for little companies. I'll work for small companies. I stayed away from downtown core where there were large buildings and there were fancy names. I just tried to look for lack of other words, ethnic or smaller companies, small partnerships with 2 names. And I was very content with it. To me, in my mind, this is it. That's what it is. I got to lay low. I will not be able to go and do what I guess other people do, but I will just stay within that particular level, or a lower level. And it became a norm for me. It just became something that was part of me. I accepted it without asking any questions, without knowing what else there is available. I just accepted it. To me, this is something that was just perfectly all right. I'm a brown person, therefore I should not be looking to work for larger companies or for prestigious companies or for national or international companies. I should be just doing what I'm doing, and that'll be fine. That is what my fate is. Now, this went on for a few years, and I was, trotting along, getting my small salary, working, going to the school, till I met somebody who was as darker as I was, or as brown as I was, and he told me that he's working for a larger firm. Just shattering something that I believed for a couple of years in my mind. That no, I cannot advance any further with bigger companies. It just shattered me. It was something that clicked in my mind. So what had happened is I had just accepted the fact that I cannot. I created my own limitations. And that is the paradigm. The paradigm is the habits that we create. It's the things that we think, and it's the perceptions of ourselves that we have. And that just keeps on going. And that is like an old operating system that just keeps on going without changing it, without doing anything else. In my case, when I realized that, it was an eye-opener for me. And when I understood that I just took somebody's words at par, without doing any investigation, without saying anything to myself, without going any further to investigate it, I just went, wow, this is amazing. This is unbelievable. I was listening to the voice in my own head, which kept on saying, oh no, you're not good enough for the large corporations. You stay down here. Now just think about it. How many people are basically trained that way, without asking a question, without even going to say something, without even investigating it. They decide that whatever the society, whatever the parents, whatever somebody told them long time ago, just becomes a reality for them. That is the paradigm, and that paradigm Bob Proctor talked about. How do we shift that paradigm? How do we change that paradigm? How do we change that mindset that has just put us in a prison that didn't even exist? I was listening to somebody today and said, these are worst, and this gentleman had just come back. It was somebody who had learned certain things at prison, had just come back. And he said, and I was totally flabbergasted, he says, these chains of ignorance, these chains of these false beliefs are worse than the metal chains that people are in the prisons. So we put ourselves in that prison. We continue to put ourselves in that prison without thinking, and our mind just keeps on going automatic. Now, how do we get out of that? What do we do? So the very first thing is the awareness. My whole reason for talking about this is that after what had happened to me, I always made myself aware to see what is my own language, what I am communicating to myself. Am I continuing to just live on the same belief? Have I audited my belief? Have I audited my own language with myself? What is that I'm trying to say to myself? Is that true that my capacities are not any more than what I've been told? How do I challenge it? And that comes through awareness. Once we start to be aware of it, once we start to be mindful that there's much more than what I am living, then we can do so much. Then we can create so much good for ourselves. Then we can find ways to change our own paradigm. Because otherwise, and other than not knowing that it exists, we will never be able to do anything about it. What we'll do is we'll continue to live in the same old. Now, I hope I'm trying to make you understand this is a simple thing, but sometimes because these are old habits, these are the old sayings that have just stayed in the back of our head, they just continue to stop us from doing anything we want to do, from going anywhere we want to go. So what do? We start being aware of it first. First, we be aware of it. We audit our own situation. Is this true? Am I putting myself in that situation? Once we have done that, then we can start looking to improve upon our own situation by saying, how am I going to change? How am I going to change that one habit? That, it's not going to happen in one day. It will require time. It will require understanding. So when I saw that the first time when I met somebody, it was a wake-up call for me. But then it took time. It takes time to understand. And that's when I said to myself that I'm not going to be in that situation. That yes, I have the same possibilities, I have the same capabilities as any other person. And once you start thinking that, your whole mindset changes. Now you're no longer working on the old operating system. I was just thinking about that. And just for a second, think in terms of where we are today in technology. We all have smartphones, and we get technological updates almost on a weekly basis. Now just think about that for our own mindset. If we are operating on an operating system from 1980 when we're living in 2025, how does that work? So this is not a how-to, but this is more what it is. Subject that I want to discuss, that I am discussing right now, is that how are you going to get out of it? To get out of it is easy. It's so understanding that that's where you are is the most difficult. It is auditing yourself. It is auditing your own language. I often talk about my running in my neighborhood. And then if I stop somewhere where neighbors know that I'm running, they will look at me and say, wow, you ran or you walked seven kilometers today, or you do that on a daily basis. And then they turn around and they say, I couldn't even walk a block. Now you know that that's a lie. But that's the lie that you continue to tell yourself. You say, I can't do this. Just put those mental barriers. You just put yourself in that prison, just behind those bars. So there's no magic, there's no answer other than to be aware and to audit ourselves, to think back and say, what am I doing to myself? See, because it becomes such an habit. It becomes such a trait that we can't get out. We just stay within that particular, and that is so difficult. So this is this is going to be a 4-part subject. And we're going to talk about it and take Bob Proctor's teachings from the paradigm as to how do we shift paradigm to what is our next step going to be. So follow me for next. I'm going to do a series of 4-part series on this. Follow me, and hopefully you will be able to understand where I'm coming from, what is my mindset, and what is that I'm trying to teach you, which is really for you to be aware of what it is, because it's so invisible and it is so sneaky and it so works in our brains that we will not be able to change it. So think about it. Think about it till my next episode. Think about it as to what old habits, what are the old thoughts, what are the old beliefs, perceptions that you are keeping in your mind. Because once you start thinking about it, once you start finding out about it, I'm sure this will help you so much, because you will see that the chains that you put on yourselves are not real, that are just your own perceptions, that's something that's in your mind. So I hope you'll think about it, and please send it to somebody who you think needs it, and subscribe to my channel. Till next time, I'm Aslam Khatri. Goodbye.